Welcome everybody to the Bench2Market seminar speaker series. Today we have a fantastic panel of folks that represent different types of contract research organizations. And I am going to be moderating this session. My name is Cindy Sundell, and I am a principal in Georgia Tech's Venture Lab. So before we start, we have, I'd like to go through a few announcements, and let me see if I can share my screen. Somewhere, here we go. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Great, all righty. So let me see, I think I'm on the last, there we go, hold on. Okay. Today's panel session is on opportunities through CROs. CRO stands for Contract Research Organization, and the title is Seamless Strategic Collaborations. And we are going to first, again, make some announcements. Then I'm going to briefly introduce each of our panelists. Then I'm going to turn it over to each of our panelists to talk about, about 4 or 5 minutes, not too long, about their particular contract research organization. And then we're going to open it up to some questions. I have some questions myself that I can use to sort of start a conversation going. And then I'd like to open it up to the audience and if they have any questions. So that will be the run of show. So in terms of announcements, we wanted to make sure that everybody knew about some of the different commercialization resources that are available to them through the Biolocity relationship. So there is this legal office hours that we want everybody to be made aware of. Please feel free to take advantage of this. This is offered by Professor, I can't blanking here, hold on, Nicole Morris at the Emory School of Law. And so she is able to discuss a number of different topics with folks. So please feel free to take advantage of this, and you can make an appointment at the link below. Let's see. Also, we want to make you aware of Biolocity office hours. These office hours are available to anyone. It's a great thing that you can take advantage of, and there are a number of things that you can talk to the Biolocity team and entrepreneurs and residents about. So again, feel free to contact Biolocity and take advantage of this. Also wanted to bring everybody's attention again to the Lab to Launch programs. The Lab to Launch is an incubator that's located on Emory campus, and so if you would like to have more information about that, there are applications are open, and you can go to the following email address to learn more about this Lab to Launch incubator. And then just wanted to, this is a save the date, the next Bench2Market talk, and this will be the last one for the season, will be on securing investment for your startup. That's going to be May 15th, and this will be another panel discussion, and we'll be hearing from a variety of different VC firms and also from folks that have taken advantage, that have had startup companies and have, dealt with different VCs, and we're going to get their thoughts too. So I think this will be a really interesting panel discussion. And so now I'm going to stop sharing my slides. And we can, I'd like to just introduce some of our different panelists. So we will start, I guess, ladies first with Marta New. Dr. New is the founder and CEO of Radyus Research. And prior to Radyus, she was a partner at Agent Capital and a principal investor at Baxalta Ventures. She was also a commercial lead at Baxter International's renal franchise and an entrepreneur in residence at Northwestern University. She received her PhD from the University of Illinois at Chicago. She completed a postdoctoral fellowship at Northwestern and received an MBA at the Kellogg School of Management. We also on our panel have Evan Goldberg. Evan is the Director of Scientific Affairs and Academic Liaison for the Global Center of Medical Innovation, or GCMI. In this role, he works with faculty and students to help commercialize early stage technologies through GCMI's product development team. We also have Art Spalding. Art is the CEO of TAMM Net. TAMM Net is a boutique CRO with complete regulatory and reimbursement offerings, including quality management, health economic outcomes research, and prior authorization services. Prior to TAMM Net, he held management and director level positions at a variety of companies, including Park Davis, Pfizer, Solvay, PurePoint Medical Education, and Columbia Laboratories. Mr. Spalding holds a bachelor's degree, a BS in chemistry from Union College, Schenectady, New York, and an MBA in health administration from Temple University. We also have today joining us Michael Sweet. Michael is with Veranex, which is a preclinical and clinical CRO. He is actually a Georgia Tech alum, BME major from Georgia Tech. He's been in preclinical research for over 15 years. He began in study management 11 years ago and has been a GLP, Good Laboratory Practice Study Director, for over 8 years now with Veranex, and he manages the study management team. And then we also have Eric Miller. So Eric Miller is a user of contract research organizations, and he is an assistant professor at Emory University School of Medicine in the Department of Pharmacology and Chemical Biology. He has a PhD in organic chemistry from Emory, where he was a graduate student postdoc and senior researcher in Dennis Leota's lab. And his research has spanned natural product total synthesis, medicinal chemistry, cancer biology, and pharmacology, all in the pursuit of developing new medicines to address unmet medical needs. So glad to have you all on this panel, and looking forward to an interesting discussion. And so I think what we'll do then is just go around to each of you to just give a 4 or 5 minute just summary about your particular organization. So why don't we start with Evan?
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. Hi, everyone. So give you an overview of GCMI. GCMI stands for the Global Center of Medical Innovation. We're a Georgia Tech affiliate and a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was founded about 12 years ago with the mission of helping the design, development, and commercialization of medical products that improve healthcare for patients around the world. We're a fee-for-service organization with capabilities ranging from early-stage feasibility assessments to design history file generation. We have a team of about 10 people, mostly engineers, that can serve as project managers for your technology and your product development team as your product matures from an early-stage technology to a commercializable medical device. We can help you de-risk your early-stage technology through what we call a phase 0 process, where we look at your technology through several different lenses, including the market, the clinical need, the intellectual property, the regulatory path, reimbursement, and the technology itself. So through this phase 0 assessment, we can help you understand the hill you're about to climb before you invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into something like a patent or injection molds for your device. You certainly want to understand the market and the regulatory path before you invest this magnitude of funds into one aspect of the development. So the main deliverables in a phase 0 are a report summarizing all of these buckets for your technology, and in most cases, a prototype. These reports plug right into applications for follow-on funding like GRA, SBIRs, STTRs, and even Biolocity funding. Once you exit phase 0, we go through our standard medical device commercialization process, phase 1 through phase 5, project planning, design and development, verification, validation, and manufacturing transfer. We can house your design history file, complete risk assessments, identify and perform all of the required testing to be compliant with the consensus standards for your device, implement a quality system, and even identify contract manufacturers that could eventually take over manufacturing when your product is ready for large-scale production. We have a machine shop, 3D printers, as well as certified clean rooms. We can do small-scale manufacturing of devices or components of your device, depending on your technology. If we don't have the capability to make prototypes, we'll farm it out to small or large-scale manufacturers. relevant to faculty members, as an affiliate organization of Georgia Tech, we hold medical products liability insurance, so we can serve as the manufacturer of record for a medical product since the university can't serve this role. We've supported 6 or 7 first-in-human clinical studies for Georgia Tech faculty members and Emory as well, where we build an abbreviated design history file to establish the safety of the device and serve as the manufacturer of record. This isn't to say we have to do all of these activities for each of your technologies. You're welcome to use us at any phase where you see fit. Some clients use us for very specific scoops of work that they don't have the capacity or capabilities to do in-house, and GCMI engineers augment their team as needed. Other clients have been through the whole process with us and use GCMI as their product development team. We work with faculty and students from Georgia Tech, researchers from other universities, innovation centers at hospitals, physicians, entrepreneurs, and startup companies. So if you're interested in learning more, feel free to reach out to discuss your technology with our team. You can find us on LinkedIn, and our website is gcmiatl.org.
Thanks, Evan. That was great. Art, why don't you go next?
Okay. Hi, I'm Art Spalding. I'm the founder of TAMM Net. We've been in Atlanta for 17 years now. And we collaborate with a number of different people, including GCMI, which is so glad to see Evan on here. As far as facilities, we do not own facilities. We are a boutique CRO. We have networks of various specialties that we work with. But our ideal client is really that pre-IND enabling client who has done some proof of concept. They have some idea of what they're doing, or pre-IDE if they're going to be following a path for either a diagnostic or a medical device. We work across all 3 areas, so that's not a problem for us. And so as such, our clients are startups and emerging companies. We deal almost exclusively with that category. We do have some larger clients, but you know, as far as being that outsource that can help you understand the regulatory path, design a clinical trial that will meet the requirements of the agency, as well as capture possibly health economic data, that's something that we feel is fairly unique that we offer, is the fact that we have a market access team as well. And having that perspective, we believe you start with the end in mind. So don't spend a tremendous amount of money on a clinical trial if you're not going to get everything you possibly can out of it, including possibly having it reimbursed. If you have a device or a diagnostic, there's a very good possibility that you could have your device or diagnostic paid for during the conduct of the clinical trial. So this is why we start before you know, if you're in a device or diagnostic, right around product lockdown is a great time to reach out. Let's see, there's some, so as far as preclinical, if it is, you know, you're going for a final study or something, we might be involved in just designing a GLP study if required. But as far as general preclinical, that's not something we would be doing. That's something like Marta might be doing. As far as skilled personnel, I've been blessed to have many phenomenal people on our team. Many of them have been with TAMM Net for over a decade. And I think that that speaks very well to the environment that we foster here. Of course, we have our own quality system and so forth. That's our main training, is any new personnel, we're training them on our quality system. How do we do things here? Because I read through your question, Cindy, so I'm trying to address some of those issues. And on diagnostics, so there's an interesting thing. As far as diagnostics go, we have specialists that work with OHT7. If you have a molecular pathology diagnostic, if you are thinking an LDT pathway might be something that you could do for market, we can facilitate that sort of transition until you are an actual cleared assay, so that you're generating revenue and so forth. Anyway, some of the things we do. Intellectual property of the clients, we don't take any interest in clients' IP. We don't create IP for them.
Those questions, you don't have to address all those questions in the introduction.
Oh, okay.
We can just discuss those together. That's fine.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So as a boutique CRO, what we don't do clinical trials for rare disease. If you need 80 sites to get 10 patients, that would not be us, and we're happy to introduce you to people that can do that. Veranex might be a good source for that sort of thing. But if you're a startup and you're looking at proof of concept, or maybe you're looking at 1,000 patients and you've got 20 sites, that would be more in our bailiwick. Anything that size and smaller. And in that sense, we think we provide a phenomenal value. You can feel free to contact me. We can talk about therapeutic areas in which we have expertise, which are significant, and look forward to talking to y'all.
Thanks, Art. Michael, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go from there. I'm Michael Sweet, and I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I'm working at Veranex Preclinical Services Atlanta. So Veranex as a whole is a truly global organization now. We have 3 major product lines under Veranex. We have product development and engineering, with locations in Providence, Rhode Island, and Raleigh, Durham, and Minnesota. We have preclinical, where we have 2 labs. We have one in Atlanta and one in Paris, France. The one in Atlanta, I'll talk about more, as that's where I'm located and have all my history with. We also have clinical and regulatory consulting groups, which are located throughout Europe. We have Switzerland, Ukraine, India as well. So those are the 3 main branches of Veranex, and kind of what we provide from people to get their product from beginning ideas all the way till clinical. For preclinical services in Atlanta, the DNA of our location is kind of intertwined with a lot of the people who are on this panel today. We were originally part of St. Joe's Hospital, then under Emory Healthcare, and then under Georgia Tech as part of the Global Center for Medical Innovation, as known as T3 Labs. T3 Labs was acquired by Veranex in December of 2023. So we've recently made the transition over and have become part of their preclinical service line. It's going from a nonprofit organization to a for-profit, corporate environment, but it's been a really positive change and kind of boosts our capabilities and allows us to provide even more resources to academic startups and larger corporations as well. What we offer here in Atlanta is we have preclinical services, which includes cadaveric, benchtop, and animal models typically that are getting you to your clinical trials. So there are 2 types of those. There are non-GLP and GLP. Non-GLP are typically feasibility or evaluation trials, where you're really trying to either hone in on, does the device work as expected? Are there design changes we need to make? Some early feedback. And then when you get to the GLP, or good laboratory practices, those are based on the Code of Federal Regulations and are intended to go to a regulatory body, either going for a CE mark, going to an Asian market, or going to the FDA directly to get approval to move into your 510(k), your IDE, to get to clinical trials. Those focus mainly on safety. And so that's the biggest factor with the work we do is the device safe to move into clinical trials into humans? It's a very important step in the process of product development. The services we offer are everything from consulting on pre-submissions to the FDA, protocol writing, running the entire study at both of our labs here in Atlanta and in Paris. We offer histology services on the back end. We also write the reports and can help get those submissions into the FDA and move on to your clinical trials. We work with everyone from academics, grant-based work, startups, all the way up to the largest medical corporations in the world. So kind of a large net. We are a fee-for-service. We can do anything kind of a la carte along the way too, if you only need help writing protocols or grant submissions, or if you need to actually run your whole trial here. And my location in Atlanta, I can connect you to the other departments, the product development or the clinical regulatory group as well. So look forward to discussing on the panel today and working with everyone today.
Thanks, Michael. Do you do medical devices and drugs, or are you mostly focused on medical devices?
Mostly medical devices. We drug based devices only if they are either for intention of delivery a device, for a model creation, or if it's like a drug eluting stent or balloon. We don't do pure like PK studies or a large number of small animals. We do small animals, everything up to non-human primates. We don't do those, but most of our devices are in cardiovascular space, valves, pacemakers, stents, interventional catheters, guide wires. We do orthopedics, we do neurology, and we do GI as well. But no, we're focused mostly on the devices themselves. Thank you for that question.
Great. And now Marta, would you like to?
All right, I'll go next. Thank you. So Radyus Research, so we're based in Atlanta and in Chicago. So we have effectively two hubs, even though we are a virtual CRO, very similar to TAMM Net, which means that we have a team of experts that come from pharma, BD, and R&D and venture capital, and we subcontract all of the experimental work. Our team focuses almost exclusively on therapeutics and vaccines development, so drug development, even though we're working on an in vivo diagnostic project currently here in town. And that is due to the fact that the FDA, in terms of the clinical safety, is really seeing that closer to being regulated as a therapeutic than a diagnostic. We have 12 people on our core team, and about 20 people extended. We've been around for about 5 years, but the team really comes, as I mentioned, from pharma. So senior drug developers that have been there and done that. And we are offering primarily program management services. Clients engage us when they have completed discovery. So they have validated their target, mechanism of action. They probably have a couple of compounds that they now to put into the lead optimization phase and then do candidate selection. So you can think of us as a drug development group, not a drug discovery group. And a lot of our clients are academic spinouts. I'd say about 50% of our clients are academic spinouts that have really interesting potential new therapeutics, mostly platforms, which is quite interesting. And then initially when we engage with them, we help them set up the product development strategy before we go into tactics. So usually we sit down and say, okay, how do we approach indication prioritization? What is the best indication for you to select? Is your data package strong enough to support that? We do a lot of technical assessments to see a lot of clients come to us and they say, well, we have a lead candidate. Can you help us get in front of the FDA for the pre-IND meeting and design IND enabling studies? And then we say, well, let us take a look and do our checklist to see if you actually have a lead candidate. And you'd be surprised how many of them have to go back to the drawing board to redesign their molecule. So long story short, we get engaged with lean companies that have maybe one scientific founder or a scientific founder that stays faculty full time, and they have maybe a postdoc as the only one in the company as a full-time person, or even sometimes they are part-time. It's very lean teams that are lean on cash, and oftentimes lean on experience, and rightfully so, as if you're an academic researcher, you're not supposed to be a drug developer. And so we come in and we partner in the long run, and we have fully integrated our services to get you outside of academia and use the frameworks to make sure that your drug that you're trying to put into the clinic actually looks and feels like a drug, that the company that you have looks and feels like a fundable company, that you have the right people, the right expertise, and of course you can lean on Radyus's team, and that you have the right pitch deck, and you can go and raise that seed, pre-seed, or Series A very successfully because you have a fundable product development plan. Once that is all in place, then we work on the tactical planning, which is what's the right killer experiment in the next 6 months that you have to do? How do we design it? How much is that going to cost you? What's the best lab in the country or in Europe or in Asia to do that? Especially if you need a specialty animal model and Crown Bio or, Charles River or maybe Veranex doesn't have the right model sitting on the shelf where we need to really find it. So our team works as an extension of your R&D team, and we're well suited for lean programs that are early stage, but we have, again, a network of collaborators like TAMM Net, like preclinical and clinical stage CROs. Once your asset reaches a certain milestone, we tap into that expertise in our network. So you can work with Radyus until your clinical proof of concept, which usually drives an exit for the company or for that asset. And we resourcefully find the right places to generate the data, to file with the FDA for pre-IND meetings, INDs, and make sure that your clinical trial is designed well. Manufacturing as well. We offer that because our model allows for a lot of subcontracting. So we work with our clients a lot on early stage formulation, process development, non-GMP work, so that everything is done in parallel in a full integrated fashion. And you can just think of Radyus as a group that swims in Gantt charts. That's what we do day in and day out. We have an army of project managers that come from academia. They all have PhDs and postdoctoral training and training on drug development, but we'll touch on that topic. So thanks for having me here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Great, thank you, Marta. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you've interacted with CROs in the past?
Sure, Cindy. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. I very much appreciate the opportunity. As you've mentioned, I come to this equation from the opposite side, right? I'm kind of an end user of the work that CROs can conduct. And I think the thing that I'd like to highlight, I guess we should start with the obvious. And Cindy, as you mentioned this, there's some CROs that are very focused on diagnostics and devices, and there are others that are very focused on therapeutics. And so that's a kind of a common theme from my experience. I've worked on antiviral agents, anti-cancer agents, immunomodulators, GPCR ligands, kinase inhibitors, protein-protein interaction modulators. And so there's just a lot of different types of chemical matter. So once we take another step down, if we're just focused on the CROs that are really therapeutic heavy, then you really oftentimes want to find the CRO that's really good at what you want them to do. So there's some CROs that are really good at metabolism experiments in human hepatocytes, for instance, which are very tricky assays that require a lot of technical know-how and experience. And you can get very different answers when you go with different CROs doing the same experiment. And so it's really important to cultivate, have these conversations early on when you're trying to engage with a CRO to make sure that they're suitable for the types of experiments that you want to run and for the kinds of compounds that you're looking to explore as well. We've worked on things from lipophilic compounds with multiple basic nitrogens, all the way to lipid conjugates, to Zwitter ions, to kinase inhibitors, which can be brick dust. And the way that you have to handle these molecules can be very different. And so I would say overall, from my experience, the common theme is to really have those strategic conversations up front. And in the best case scenario, your CRO liaison will be very upfront and honest about what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. And when you have that kind of relationship between an academic group or a startup company and the person that's really conducting a lot of your key experiments, that's really how, in my experience, it works best. It's very much a back and forth, not a just, hey, do this assay and give us the data. They'll do that too, but you're paying for it. So.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so Eric, it sounds like you've had a lot of interactions with CROs. And can you give us some examples of things that have worked well and maybe things that have not worked so well, and why that was?
Sure. So let's see. Let me start with something that worked really well. So and this ended up in us not working with the company. There's a company, small boutique CRO, but they're very, very good at in vivo pharmacokinetic models. And so we had a number of conversations with them. We signed an NDA so we could disclose all of the information. And eventually they were very upfront and they said, we're not the group that you want to go with for this. And, you know, they reached out to some of their colleagues with more specialty expertise with what we were trying to do. And that really, really helped. You know, it would have been honestly $100,000 or $150,000 experiment if we went with them, and we wouldn't have gotten the type of data that we wanted. And so that's one example of where those conversations can be very valuable up front. There are some horror stories that I have, unfortunately, too, where you don't have those conversations up front, and then you end up having a lot of questions that you didn't address during the experiment and the experimental design. And a lot of that is honestly naivete on my experience as a young academic researcher, right? It takes a while to understand how to work with the CRO. You know, Eurofins will list this very broad and extensive list of assays that you can get, and they're off the shelf and you can pay for them. But if you don't have those critical conversations about what you really want, and is the extraction method going to get the compound, that the type of compound that you need it to get, there's all of these nuances that it really helps to sort of cultivate up front. And so my advice for first and foremost for anyone that is looking to interact with a CRO as a customer, that's really the most important thing up front. Because I've made a lot of mistakes personally, and they're not mistakes that you'd like to make again.
Great. I guess why don't I take a moment, I think, to open the questions up to the audience and see if there's anybody who would like to ask a question before we move on. Let me see if there's anything in the chat. So I think April is requesting that you put the questions in the Q&A. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to do that.
Maybe while we're waiting, I'll just follow up quick and say, that's one of the wonderful things about what Radyus does, is they manage a lot of that for you. I mean, it's really, it can be a full-time job if you let it be. You know, there's a lot of startup companies that work completely virtually. They don't have any wet lab space, and they're completely dependent on CROs. And so if you don't have a dedicated person that's in charge of managing your CRO experiments, Radyus plays a very integral role in that space. So.
Yeah, no, thanks, Eric. So I'll also just add that in my experience, so I've been in drug development for a number of years, working for small companies where I was also very dependent on CROs, CDMOs, CMOs, and I agree with you that it's really important to develop that relationship, have regular meetings, close relationship to the project manager, so that you are, making sure that you're staying on task and that your timelines are, being respected both ways, or it can be really disastrous for a small company. So I think I'm going to open this up to our panel, and maybe you can tell us what, in your opinion, are some best practices for companies working with CROs and how to make that relationship as seamless as possible. Who would someone like to address that?
I could jump in and sort of continue off of what Eric was saying as well, though, in the same vein. But you know, from the perspective of someone who's been in the CRO world for over 15 years, I couldn't agree more too with what Dr. Miller's saying. When a client approaches us, you know, as the CRO, if we don't have the model they're looking for, or if we do, but we're not necessarily experts in that one field, it's a very important conversation to have up front, to set those expectations, to be honest about it, to say we're willing to develop it, we're willing to work on it, do some pilot work, we're trying to hit your data points, your endpoints in a timely manner, but it's expensive, and these are kind of the costs associated with it. We also have a large connection to other CROs, to other groups, and we often refer them to someone who might be, you know, an expert in that particular model, because no one is an expert in every model in the preclinical space. And if they tell you that, you should be a little nervous about that. There's too many different types of therapeutic areas, too many different types of assays and models. So you need to say, when you're talking to a CRO, you want to ask those questions. What is your exact expertise? When was the last type of study you ran with this type of assay? What were those results like? They may not be able to share everything with you because they have to maintain a level of confidentiality, but they should be able to share general results and general aspects of the study. Those are the kind of questions you should be asking that are tied to your specific device and model. And a lot of the people who are on this panel can give you the advice and the direction for what those questions should look like, what your model should probably involve. And if you're not comfortable with the way the CRO is responding to it, you do need to probably look at other options, because you don't want to get 2-3 studies in and $300,000 down the road and then realize that that company's not able to fulfill the needs you have. So we try to be as honest with our clients up front. We don't want to, it's a relationship you want to build, so you get repeat customers. It's a small medical device world. You'll run into the same people all over the place. You don't want to disappoint by not meeting endpoints, not meeting timelines, not really delivering on what you promised. So those are really important conversations to have up front, and really a relationship that needs to start right away. So.
Anyone else? Art?
Marta, did you want to go first?
You go ahead.
Okay. No, I think that conversation is important. What do you get from working with more of a CRO that does not have facilities? You might get priority, for example, because our toxicology team has been involved with over 143 INDs that were successful. When we approach a lab that would be contracted by you for your product, for your activity, they return our calls. You're not placed at the bottom of the pile. These are important considerations. If you're the first time you're doing this, we have a variety of clients who are serial entrepreneurs. So we're working on their 5th or 6th product now within the past 17 years. And so we don't advertise it. We have a perfect model because we don't own any models. But we will be able to identify if there is a model that's appropriate for your particular needs, and where that might be. Yeah, we work with the big things like Charles River that keeps buying some of our favorite labs, but there are still some small labs out there that we can work with, and we have worked with, well, now it's Veranex, Michael, but in its previous iterations and so forth. So, that's something you may consider is like Marta says, sort of the project management or the consulting side of this activity can be invaluable, versus just approaching the lab itself. If you're a carpenter, everything's a nail.
Yes, and I'm really agreeing with this conversation. And just for the record, Eric is not sponsored by Radyus, even though I owe you a few beers. Thank you for your kind words. But yeah, well, I'm hoping that you guys are hearing the theme that, product development is a long journey. And on this journey, things will not go as planned. And surrounding yourselves with consultants, with project managers and CROs that can help you effectively problem solve without creating a fuss, delaying it, or charging you double, that can either make you or break you. And so ask yourself, do these people know what I'm trying to do and what's the bigger picture? And to the analogy that Art said, if you keep going and then just asking for a tactical, I just need this study executed. And if that team at that CRO doesn't know how the data that's coming out is connected to the other milestones, they will not give you their best. And we at Radyus, because again, we subcontract all of our services for every client that we've had, we have subcontracted work to at least one, if not multiple, on average, 3 other CROs and CDMOs. So we are users of CRO services, if you will. So, well, what we look for in a CRO is that upfront conversation. Did you bring your A team to the table? Are they asking strategic questions that are in the context of the tactical execution? Is this the right animal model? Can we offer something better? Can we use cannulated rats, for instance, so we're not drawing blood so frequently from the rat tails, and this is better for IACUC? These are the conversations where you're like, okay, these are my people. These people care about animals. Unfortunately, we have to sacrifice animals on the way to IND. These are the people that want me to succeed and want me to get the data as soon as possible because they know that I'm fundraising and next month I'm in Boston and I need this data to put in the deck. So I would encourage you to, if you decide to just go out and work directly with CROs and you want to strategically stay lean, which is what VCs are right now prioritizing. They're not investing in companies that are spinning out of academia, renting out large spaces, internally hiring scientists. They're looking for lean virtual companies because there's enough capacity in the system. So chances are you're going to stay virtual, and chances are on average you will be interacting between 11 to 16 CROs and CDMOs before you hit IND. That's a lot of project management, a lot of contracting, a lot of headaches, a lot of herding cats, and problems are going to be over 50%. So think in terms of who has my back, who's there long term, and if they are just a contract research organization, once they're done, here's the data, good luck to you, don't go back. That they get bad rep in the industry.
Can I build on what you just said there a little bit, Marta? As you're considering who to hire, also remember that you're not, and forgive me, but we've dealt with many academics, you're not hiring someone to work in your lab. We and other people are not going to be the ultimate expert in exactly the subspecialty of science that you are an expert in. But we should be able to speak your language. We should understand what you're doing, but our job isn't to do it. Our job is to get it to the market by incremental steps. So I just wanted to mention that we have run into that a few times where people think they're interviewing someone for their lab, and it's like, well, you haven't done this exact flow cytometry before. Yeah, that's not what you're hiring us to do, just to be clear.
Yeah, maybe I can, I'm sorry, maybe I can piggyback off of that real quick. As the resident academic on the call, I certainly know what you're talking about. There are all sorts of types that you find within these ivory towers. You know, I think you have to be really clear about what you're trying to get. You know, there's different stuff that you want to run in your lab versus stuff that you want CROs to do. And then eventually, once you get to IND enabling studies, you're going to have a CRO do what you did in your lab anyway, because the FDA is not going to believe it if it was all done in-house and whatnot. So it's you know, you need both components, as Arthur said. You have to develop the technology and the proof of concept inside of your team. But then once you get there, in order to get it to market, it's a much different process, and you have to check a lot of boxes, and that's not something that a lot of academic labs are well set up to do. So it can be a great resource, but yeah, understand it for what it is.
So it sounds like all of you have a lot of experience dealing with academic innovators and startups. So that, I think, makes you really unique compared to some other CROs. But that also presents some challenges. So a lot of those challenges would be limited resources, very tight timelines that are faced by very early stage companies or maybe pre-companies. How do you handle those challenges? And have you ever collaborated, for instance, on grants with startups? You know, what kind of unique approaches do you have for very cash-strapped clients?
So, Cindy, I can answer that, since I feel like all of our clients are cash strapped. It's really the nature of our business. You know, we work with faculty members, entrepreneurs, physicians, you know, with an idea, startup companies. So, you know, one thing I'll say is that, yeah, I said this before, our phase 0 assessment report actually plugs into the grant applications that you'll be going for next, whether it's GRA funding or Biolocity or SBIRs. So that certainly helps. But, you know, the nature of our business, you know, as a medical device consulting group, we are here to augment your team when you need us to. So, you know, so you don't have to hire a full-time quality person or a full-time product development team. You can, you know, turn the spigot on and off when you need, and we can be a part of your team when we're engaging with you, and when you don't need our services anymore, you can work on your own and then come back to us, you know, when you need the services again. So, you know, our rates are fairly reasonable. You know, it seems like, you know, most of the clients we work with are cash strapped, and so, you know, not only do we work with them on applying for these follow-on funding opportunities, but, you know, we can accomplish goals without having to hire more people within your organization.
Maybe I can go next. I think you rightfully pointed out, Cindy, we're all kind of catering to academic spinouts, and I think that's a reflection of where the market is in Atlanta currently and in the state of Georgia. It's a relatively nascent biotech market, still emerging, and it's probably going to take 5 to 10 years and very focused joint effort among different institutions in town and the state to push us into kind of having a mid-market and having a large pharma anchor here in town. So that's kind of where it's going. But we, of course, service provider on this call are catering our services to the needs of this market. And so, for instance, even though Radyus has clients in other markets across the US and in Europe and actually in Asia, there is a sense of pride and a sense of wanting to do what's best for the academic researcher and to be resourceful. And so here in this town, it's a little bit different for Radyus, how we work with local entrepreneurs than with just kind of a regular client. I'd say that comes from Boston. It had just raised 20 million Series A, or Silicon Valley. They have different capital structures, different requirements, and different composition of the company, and a lot of their services are integrated. So where I'm going with this is that because this market currently in Atlanta and in the state of Georgia is very driven by academic startups, there is a strong effort by your organization to educate the faculty on what it takes to spin out a company. What do you need to know? What are your functions versus what do you need to outsource? How to bring in talent? I think it's very critical. And so that's how Radyus is positioning our own services in town, and are working very collaboratively with a lot of faculty. They have not even started companies to think through, okay, what do you have right now? What can we do in the next 6 months with the GRA funding, with Biolocity funding, with with SBIRs, with ARPA-H funding to actually elevate and de-risk collectively the IP that's coming out of universities, so from an academic project into again, product development project. And so we're all doing a lot of pro bono advisory, meeting with faculty saying, okay, what can we do? Let's apply for 50K GRA grant. This is how it looks like. So you get composition of matter, because you can't start your company just on a tool compound. And so that's kind of hopefully is going to spark some momentum, and it's paying it forward in a sense. So I want to say to, the participants here on the panel, I want to thank you all, because I know how hard you work and, in your off hours to advise, to educate, to participate in other ways that are really going to help collectively this ecosystem thrive. So I'm very happy to be here as I moved to Atlanta 5 years ago from Chicago, but somehow this town now feels like my town. And every day and everything I do, I try to bring in my network from Chicago, from Boston, from San Francisco here to kind of draw attention to what's going on. And collectively, we can really, again, elevate it. So.
Thanks, Marta.
I'm gonna thank you very much, Marta. I'm gonna comment a little bit like what Evan said. So we start with a gap assessment, for these cash trap companies, so they really have an idea of. I mean, I can't tell you. We've had multiple academics come to us and say we're ready for IND, and then we introduce a simple term like GMP, and they're like, "What is that?" There's a gap there. So just for anybody on the call that doesn't know, anything that's put into a human being in the United States as a drug product has to be manufactured on good manufacturing practices. So, and we help them achieve that. So cash flow, we have to, we can work in a variety of ways throughout the project, including, if they have a certain amount of cash every month that they're getting from a grant or a contract, we can work within that. That's one of the flexibilities we're happy to do. And we write tons of letters of support for different activities. We understand the process. We've had some of our consultants used to run places like DITRA, for goodness sake. So we have very intimate knowledge of BARDA and DITRA and so forth. And that's another part that I sometimes educate them on is, yeah, you've got contracts, but you've got grants, but you also have contracts. Contracts are typically orders of magnitude larger than grants. If you're at a stage of development where that's appropriate, then maybe you hire a firm like Evergarland or something like that, and you put that together and you are successful, because your chance of success is dramatically higher because there's so few compliant proposals versus grant proposals. These are the sorts of things. And then the other source of money, of course, is non-dilutive. Well, many of our academic researchers are fantastic scientists, top-notch people, but they've never run a firm of any sort, let alone a biotech firm. Guess what? There are people that have. And we, in our network of collaborators, we have fractional CEO groups that can bring somebody in. Maybe they'll only work in your company 1 day a week or less, but having that person who has the experience of raising $500 million, who's successfully exited companies before, can bring tremendous focus to your efforts, and also the resources you need, because we've never had an overfunded client.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
I can chime in for a second, but from the CRO, the larger type CRO like we are, you can tell the people who've come in and have done their homework, either from academic or a startup company, people who've met with people like TAMM Net and Radyus, and where they've gotten good advice. They know what their targets are. They know what the market already exists, because when a researcher or a startup has their product they think it's going to change the world, every single one of them, right? And that may even be true, but if there isn't a market for it, it doesn't matter if your thing is revolutionary. If there isn't a need for it, or if the surgeons and doctors aren't going to use it at the end point, so you can spend all this time and money on something that ultimately may not work, despite however good the science behind it is. And so there's people who come in and they've already done their gap analysis, they've done their market research, they know how much they think it will take to get through preclinical and clinical trials, and that advice they've gotten serves them and saves them money. It prevents pitfalls. So often we'll come back to a client who has clearly not done that research and try to be as upfront with them as possible, give them the advice we can offer, direct them to our own, consultants or other ones, outsourced ones, because we want to see you succeed too. Your success is our success, right? We're as a contract research organization, all of the people here, we only succeed when our clients succeed. And so we want to set you up for success, but that does take a lot of planning and a lot of upfront work before you're not ready for your IDE submission on day one, or even usually year one. So it's things like that I couldn't agree more with what Art said.
Well, it looks like we only have a couple more minutes, so I want to open up some questions, see if the audience has any questions or wants to put anything in the chat or the Q&A before we finish up here.
It's worth emphasizing, as the resident academic, that botched clinical development can also be a reason your life-changing therapy never makes it to the patients. So having the team in place to translate from preclinical setting to clinical is also very critical. And I've not been there yet, but hopefully soon. And I may be reaching out to some of you on this call to help us get there. So thank you again for allowing us to be here today. And I think this was a great session.
All righty. Well, I think if we don't have any further questions, anybody, any further comments from the panelists or final comments?
Thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to seeing the Atlanta cluster grow and thrive.
I think you guys are going to play a very important role in that. So really appreciate everybody's time on this panel. I think it was really informative, and I know I learned a lot.